Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bender, Ash Paulson, and Ted Wiesen from Brain Scratch Comms to discuss even more news on Playtonic's Banjo-Kazooie spiritual successor, Project Ukulele. So let's get started. Alright guys, the Playtonic Games gave a presentation a couple days ago where they addressed a lot more about the game. Specifically, they mentioned that they're going for a premium game experience, like similar to, the games Rare used to make, which means no microtransactions or in-game ads. They basically just drove home the point that they really are trying to capture the spirit of Banjo-Kazooie. So there's going to be big open worlds, there's going to be a hub world, there's going to be a focus on 3D platforming, lots of moves to learn, tons of collectibles, and of course giant googly eyes on everything. That's key. And of course they're trying to bring that same sense of humor into it too. So there's a lot to cover here, but I thought we'd start off with your guys' initial impressions to everything you've heard so far. So what are your thoughts on Project Ukulele?
It really is sort of the ideal game of those classic 3D platformers because you have such memories with them, and you look at these screenshots and they really do give off that vibe of those original games. And hearing what they want to do with this new game and how they want to expand it and take that knowledge they learned before, I can't help but get excited for it. We've really not seen that much from it, just like ideas they have and things they wanted to do with it. But if they're able to pull this off, we could be looking at something really special.
Yeah, I agree. Just kind of reading through all the new details they just released, I am super excited. Like you said, Andre, this is exactly the kind of game I've wanted to play for a long time, but I haven't been able to, unless I want to go back and replay Banjo-Kazooie or Banjo-Tooie or DK64.
Why would you want to go back to play DK64 though?
That's a whole separate discussion. But I didn't hate it like so many people did. It just wasn't as good as Banjo, but. No, honestly, I'm super excited. And any game these days that uses more than like 30% of the color spectrum is something to get excited about. That alone is a reason to be excited. But no, I can't wait to hear more.
You say that, and I look at the screenshot for the cave under hub world thing that they have, and most of the time the cave levels in games are all gray, and they got glowy rocks, so there's light blue and greens in it, and so it's just I am loving the way this game looks so far, and we really only have a vague idea of the gameplay from what they've told us, which sounds like Banjo, but we don't know what the differences are going to be yet. But just in terms of art style, this game already seems to have a distinct identity, which is very much appreciated.
Yeah, no, I'm digging the look of these. The first screenshot in particular actually reminded me a little bit of Avatar, because with the floating mountains in the background, the waterfalls coming off of them. So I'm just really excited to see what they're able to do now with new technology. And that's what they mentioned in the presentation. They want to take the way they're looking at Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie now are prototypes of what this game is going to be. Now that they can do a lot more with technology without having to write their own engine for everything. It sounds like they can really achieve their dream, what they think this game really should be. They're mentioned that they're trying to make the worlds appear more lived in, they're not just going to be barren wastelands. They're going to have a lot of things to do in them. And they even mentioned too that there's going to be a ton of secrets in the game. They mentioned that they think they'll have secrets even after you beat the game that people won't uncover for years, or so they claim. We'll see.
People are really good at finding that stuff anymore, but you never know.
I think that's an obvious kind of reference to Stop and Swap, and kind of how that remained hidden and not really figured out for years. But of course, that was also before. More or less before the age of the modern internet. The internet was still around, but it wasn't quite as prolific as it is today. So I'm a little, I'm a little skeptical on if they can actually include something that would remain hidden for years, only because now it's easy for people with the right equipment to data mine the game, basically.
Well, it's interesting to bring up Stop and Swap, simply because, the idea of that was connecting, two different games. And they mentioned through this presentation that one of the things they're trying to do with this game, or with their universe in general so far, is that this world is going to be populated by a ton of different characters, apparently. And they've already planned, future games based on those characters, and have these characters all appear in each other's games. Which reminds me a little bit of Stop and Swap, the idea of taking assets from one game into another. I wonder if that could tie into the whole secrets thing. They're going for this giant universe, Avengers-like universe, as they said themselves. Maybe that ties into it. Maybe, you'll use one thing from one game for something in another.
This is an idea of Rare's that I think goes all the way back to Diddy Kong Racing, because when they made that game, that's where they introduced Banjo and Conker.
Yeah.
And then, they went on to have their own separate series, both being fan favorites. I do think, the entire presentation, if you've watched it, was very tongue-in-cheek. They mentioned how people weren't really fans of Nuts and Bolts. At one point they did... well, Nuts and Bolts had a good soundtrack.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
At one point they did mention the word stop and swap, I think mostly just because it is one of the most famous kind of Rare sort of things. So, I think that, especially back then, people had ideas that weren't just able to come to fruition because of the technology. So I think, if they just had some crazy idea that they wanted in an N64 platformer that they couldn't just do because of the tech limitations, they're probably going to try to see if they can fill it out right now. Because, why not?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of, this side character is going to be his own starring game, maybe even completely different genre, is kind of exciting. And I think what's even more interesting about that is they said that, these characters might be villains in this game, but they might be allies in the next, if they take it from this other character's perspective. And that's a very unique way to look at things. You'll be maybe taking down these guys wholesale, and all of a sudden hey, they're friends, and you're how does that make you feel about that sort of thing, as far as messing with people's emotions in some small way, I guess. I just really like that idea that they're going for, because I think the big thing nowadays is that shared universe, bringing all these characters together, and then if you get them interested in S1 character, then okay, here's this movie here's this game, movie, whatever, featuring them, and you can have even more adventures from them. It's a really interesting idea of bringing just this world together.
That's actually kind of the only thing about this whole thing that is a red flag to me. I'm not saying that doesn't sound like a good idea, and I think it's great to have ambition, but them talking about how they want to build this whole Marvel-like or Avengers-like universe with this, starting with this first game, is kind of reminding me on what has kind of gone down with Mighty Number 9 in the last few months, where they haven't even released their game yet, but they're putting the main character Beck into all these crossovers and announcing an animated series and getting way too ahead of themselves. And I'm just like, you know what? Ambition's great, but make the game first, make it great, and then let's talk about what comes after. But make the core game first.
Yeah, you say that, but I think it's kind of weird, because Kickstarter projects, developers, indie developers who do Kickstarters tend to get friendly with each other, because, it's just a thing that happens. So you see crossover stuff a lot. Even before Shovel Knight had the Battletoads join for some reason. Shovel Knight made guest appearances in a slew of other indie games.
Sure, I mean, it's not the cameo aspect that really bothers me so much as it is just this whole, we're building this entire universe, and this character's going to, appear in 2 more games after this, and it's that all sounds so cool, but let's just make the game first. The core game, and then see how it goes from there.
The thing that gives me a little bit more confidence about that sort of thing is that even if the Kickstarter fails, this game's going to happen.
Right.
They could not reach that goal at all, and they're still going to make this game, and they could still have the potential to grow. So I think they're not getting too far ahead of themselves. I think, from what I understood from this presentation, is that the Kickstarter's main goal is to allow them to put it on other consoles, because I think as of right now it's only determined for the PC. The Kickstarter will allow them to sort of expand the ideas that they already have and get it on whatever consoles people want and really take off from there. And I like the fact that they have this basic idea, okay, this is what we have, this is what we're going to do. If we're doing successful enough, we have these characters that we put a little bit more thought into than just regular old NPCs, and we can expand from this as we go along. So that's why I'm a little bit more confident than the stuff that's happening with Mighty Number 9.
At least for me, I think that as long as these ideas are just ideas, it's fine to throw them out there. I agree with you guys that I hope that, at least for now, they're focusing on this one game. They're gonna get Project Ukulele done, or at least, mostly done, before they start working on anything else. But, I think that I like their design approach, where they, where having the idea of, if this NPC gets really popular, we can give him or her their own game. I think that encourages them to make a game world that feels lived in, like they said, which I think in this case, would benefit Ukulele's core gameplay, because, like, Banjo-Tooie is one of my favorite games of all time, like, top 3. And one of the reasons why I like that game so much is that the world, for an N64 game at the very least, feels very organic, like, the factory level, Grunty's Industries, despite being one of the most annoying levels in the game,
wait.
feel...
The most industrial level feels most organic to you?
Okay, let me finish. Like, it feels like you know how most factory levels in video games, they just have, like, saw blades and conveyor belts all over the place. In Grunty's Industries, it's like a 5-floor building. On the first floor, they've got a trash compactor. On the third floor, they've got, like, storage. So, it feels like it's a real place that makes sense in a cartoony kind of way. And as opposed to, like, you know, like a Donkey Kong factory level where, you know, there's saw blades and conveyor belts. Like, not that isn't fun, it's just, you know, it felt like a very lived-in kind of world, and they said here that was the kind of thing that they were going to go for, only just, you know, with better technology. So, you know, I do feel like as long as I'm fine with them having ideas, as long as they remain ideas until they keep everything for Ukulele set in stone and they can start working on it. Because I do agree that trying to do what Mighty Number 9 does and splitting your attention between 4 different side projects at once, it does 2 things. 1, it decreases the amount of attention and quality for each project, and 2, none of them will come out on time. So, yeah.
The concept of the game on its own, though, you know, does just seem sort of classic in a way. I mean, you got these 2 characters. I assume 2 characters because that's what they showed in the shadows, and we got a slight peek at the one in that one concept art, and it's definitely lizard-like from what we can tell. And they said it's going to. The reason they haven't showed off these characters yet is because just by looking at them, you'll be able to tell what a lot of the special moves and gameplay elements that they're going to have in there in the game. So that's kind of interesting there, that they're just that readily apparent. It makes me wonder if you'll be able to sort of suss out what kind of gameplay ideas you can get from the other characters that they have planned. But moving on from that subject, the idea that the world is not as linear, but you still have like this hub world that you expanded to other themed worlds, and then that expands the other worlds. It's sort of interesting. Like, they're saying it's less linear, but I'm wondering if it's less linear in a Banjo-Kazooie way, a Banjo-Tooie way, or how less linear it's going to be, since you've got to do certain things to unlock other things, and you just can't go wherever.
Yeah, I feel like the other ones are already pretty non-linear, too. The previous Banjo games.
Yeah, that's the one thing I really am hoping does not happen, is that it becomes so non-linear that it could be considered open world in a sense. I do not want that from a game like this. I don't even want anything close to that.
I don't think we will. I mean, based on how they've talked about it, like, I mean, we already know there's going to be the hub world connecting the other worlds, so I don't think it can be like a true open world based on that alone. So I think I'm not too worried about that, fortunately.
Well, I mean, Epic Mickey had a pretty large hub world. I hate to draw any comparison to that game, but Epic Mickey had a pretty large hub world, so maybe they're thinking something along those lines.
Well, so did Banjo-Tooie, though. Banjo-Tooie.
That's true, actually. Yeah, Banjo-Tooie did.
The Isle of Hags. I will say, you know, although I generally prefer Tooie to Kazooie, I will say that I think that if it were a little bit less choppy, I would say that Gruntilda's Lair was a better hub than the Isle of Hags, mostly just because the Isle of Hags was just a group of sections that linked each of the different areas. Like, this is the area where these 2 levels are in, and so on and so forth. Whereas Grunty's Lair, it was a little bit, each area was a little bit too small for me, but, you know, that's just a tech thing.
Well, I'm definitely getting a bit of a Grunty Lairs vibe, too, from the hub world screenshot we see here.
Me as well. The only thing that I really want is that, one of the, like, a lot of people complain about Banjo-Tooie's backtracking. I don't, because that game has warp points all over the place, so, you know, it really only takes a minute to get from any place to another place. I just hope that, you know, if the world's going to be this big, you know, that's great, it just needs to be convenient to travel around in. So if they can do that, then I don't really mind how non-linear it is, because if I can get to any point in the world within, like, a minute, then it doesn't really matter how much I have to search around for stuff.
I guess what they went right ahead and said that one of the big elements they're bringing back, of course, is collectibles, because, boy, Rare was known for collectibles.
What do you mean? There were 500 to find in every level in Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah, really.
Exactly. So they've already told us what our first collectible will be in this game, which turns out to be pages. Though, as you spotted, Andre, in their presentation, it's written as pages, like Pagies,
right?
Which is a very unique distinction and almost very close to, what was it, Jaggies or
Jiggies. Well, they made a joke about it where it says we've gotten no better at naming things or something like that. So
I hope it's Pages. I think that's perfect. That reminds me so much of that kind of banjo naming scheme. I hope it's Pages.
Okay, so getting back out to the game's going to play, I thought the developers mentioned something kind of interesting briefly, where they noted that they have people from the Donkey Kong Country games on their team, and it sounded like they wanted to bring elements of those games into this game. So basically making it a little bit more of a truer platforming game, or like a pure platforming game, than Banjo-Kazooie did, or at least have elements of that, I suppose. So I wonder if that might provide a hint as to what these characters could be. You know, as Derek mentioned, if you zoom in on the picture here, it does look like the character is a bit of a lizard. I've seen a lot of speculation that it could be a chameleon. I'm not quite sure how that would work. Maybe he blends in for like stealth-based gameplay or something. But what I do know is that you can see some islands floating in the background there, and I'd be very surprised if you can't fly to them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised in a 3D platformer if there isn't some flying ability that you can unlock eventually, because, I mean, you unlock the ability to fly only in the second world in Banjo-Kazooie, and that's a complete game changer, so I feel like flying has to be a part of this game at some point.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of what that second character is, because, like, we know that the first character is some kind of lizard thing, so that could imply, you know, a whole bunch of things, like if it's dragony fire breath, or like a tail spin, or flying, or whatever. But the thing about Banjo-Kazooie is that it was a kind of a similar sort of thing where, you know, you hear about the bird in the backpack on a bear kind of thing, and you already get ideas. It's like, oh, the bird can fly for the bear, and the bear can punch things, and you know, you get those kind of ideas just naturally by listening to the description. So I think it wasn't. For me, it wasn't when just Kazooie or just Banjo that was doing a move that made it interesting, but when they were working in tandem for specific moves. So I think, you know, that'll be the most interesting thing, is when we figure out what that second character is. Because as far as we know, nobody really has any idea of what it looks like so far, right? Other than it has eyes.
Yeah, not really.
Yeah.
You know, something that just came to my attention is that the second screenshot, I know you guys are saying that it reminded you of Grunty's Lair, but I'm actually getting a Glitter Gulch Mine vibe from it.
Oh yeah, I got that too.
It's underground.
Yeah, it's the coloring too, I think.
Yeah, that's
Glitter
why.
Gulch Mine. Glitter Gulch Mine was a very bright underground level, which, you know, was a nice change of pace, and you know how everything kind of like glowed in that level. I think it's just more the fact that it's the hub as opposed to its own world that makes me think more Grunty. You know, especially considering that they said, I'm pretty sure they compared it to a labyrinth, and like the screenshot they show is very twisty-turny.
Sure.
But if it's like Glitter Gulch Mine, that's one of my favorite levels in the game, so, you know,
yeah,
go off that as much as you want.
Well, and now I've got the damn song in my head from that level, and I can't. I'll be humming it all day.
Why did you say that? Now I do too.
Has Grant Kirkhope been confirmed to work on the soundtrack, or has it just kind of been coy, tongue-in-cheek kind of?
Him and David Wise.
Both him and David Wise. So.
Oh my god!
Okay.
This soundtrack is going to be really good.
It's going to be so good.
It's gonna be amazing, and they mentioned too for the Kickstarter, like, you know, they threw out some ideas that they might do for it, and one could be like orchestral soundtracks.
Oh.
And, yeah, right. It'd be amazing hearing those two in the same game with using an orchestra. Oh my god.
Yeah,
I think I also heard that Grant Kirkhope is working like to get a song ready for the Kickstarter, to have it ready for people to listen to once that launches. So
I think they've already heard samples
nice.
too, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
That would make a ton of sense. Now, speaking of the Kickstarter, they threw out some other ideas too, like some things they wanted to do, like limited edition versions of the game. You know, they mentioned that it might dictate what platforms it comes out on, and they even mentioned the possibility of amiibo, you know, were to come to Wii U. And beyond that, they also mentioned, you know, the possibility of VR, because someone asked about that. Do you guys have any thoughts on like what you would personally want to see from that, or if you have any ideas for what they could do with some of those options there?
I don't know if I want amiibos, because...
Well, I know I don't want amiibo.
Well, like, I'd like a little figure of the guys, but I also don't want to wait out at Walmart at 4 o'clock in the morning, so, you know, you win some, you lose some. You know, Really, for me, I'm not really sure what kind of gameplay features I would want, unless if they have an idea for it that they could show us. Really, the only thing that I firmly want is for the game to be on, I think on Wii U specifically, because for some reason it just feels like it would fit on that console better than the others. You know, maybe that's just the Nintendo fanboy in me. I don't know. But, you know, like, I think that, you know, again, like, the amiibo apocalypse is real. Like, if they do end up doing this whole shared universe of games kind of thing, I think amiibo support would be cool.
It would make sense.
Because, you know, that would be how they could implement some of that swap and stop kind of stuff in it, you know?
Right.
Like, you know, you get an amiibo of Ukulele's Duo, and then you could put it into the next game, and then, you know, you get stuff. Like, I don't really know. They're probably better at these kind of ideas than I am, but it would be interesting. It's just, you know, they'd need to have supply, and they'd also need to have enough money to make it happen, which would probably be a lot, so...
I mean, as far as ideas for the Kickstarter, I've only supported 2 Kickstarters before, so I don't have like a whole lot of basis for that sort of thing. I mean, usually with the packs I supported with those is I got the game and I got like the soundtrack and maybe an art book and whatnot. And I think an art, you know, that's all fine for here. That'd be enough support for it. But as far as like other ideas of what they could implement, I'm not sure. I think I just like, I want their vision to come to this and to really sort of evolve, like, honor the classics, of course, but also evolve the gameplay, which is what they're saying they want to do. So as long as they accomplish that, I'm pretty much satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm with you, Ted. I mean, I think one of the main things for me is that this game comes to Wii U. I will play it, of course, if it comes to PS4, you know, PS3, whatever, but this game just feels like, because of its pedigree, because of its aesthetics, because of its inspiration, it really feels like it needs to be on Wii U. And I think even Playtonic has kind of hinted that they really feel that way as well. That they're definitely targeting Nintendo consoles for this. So, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of game that I really want to play on my Wii U with a Wii U Pro controller and just get lost in. And it wouldn't feel as right on a Sony or Microsoft system, in my opinion.
I can see that, but I got pretty used to Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie being on Xbox real fast.
I did too, but I mean, those are also remakes. I mean, this, I don't know, this is...
Well, Nuts and Bolts felt like, for me, was fine as well.
Oh, I didn't like Nuts and Bolts, so that's a whole other thing.
Not because, but, I mean, that wasn't because it was on Xbox.
No, not at all. No, that wasn't because of the system. I don't know, this is, I mean, of course, I think it'll end up being multi-platform, which is great, and I think it's, I mean, the bigger an audience a game like this has, the better. I'm not saying it shouldn't come to other platforms. This is just the kind of game that I personally would really like to play on Wii U.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to come to Wii U simply because that's the only next-gen system I have, so...
Right.
If I can hold out on buying another one, I'm totally fine with that, so...
I will say that I do like the idea that, the fact that the worlds themselves will expand in size as you unlock, stuff with pages, or pages, whatever they end up being. I like that idea.
I like that idea too, because I think it'll make... for a lot of people complain about backtracking in these kinds of games, although I don't know why you play this kind of game and then complain about backtracking, but whatever. But I think it will add like a certain sort of excitement to going back to a level. I think, you know, it's just like, ooh, now there's more stuff to find, as opposed to, okay, I gotta go back to the first level and collect everything I couldn't get before.
So how do you think they'll handle that, though? Like, I'm trying to think just, like, from a narrative perspective, I suppose, or, well, gameplay as well.
I think they said they would unlock abilities in the individual levels that would allow them to get a little bit further in the hub worlds.
Is that how they said it?
Oh, is that?
But that's basically how Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie work, though.
Yeah, so it's not really a new thing, but maybe it's a different twist on the same thing? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I mean, the what I'm reading here says that specifically pages will unlock, you know, will expand current worlds, and worlds will expand in size when you unlock stuff with pages.
One example I'm thinking of is like the framing device for this game is like a storybook, and like you find pages and it fills in the book, and then the levels get bigger. Maybe I don't know. I guess again. I think the thing that I'm looking forward most to it is seeing the Kickstarter come, because not only will we, I think by the time the Kickstarter gets up, they will have a more firm sense of scale for the project, definitely. And also, we will get some gameplay footage, or we better get some gameplay footage, which will be nice.
I may not need gameplay, but at least more of the worlds, these characters, what they plan to do with it. As long as they reveal that, I can see people jumping on board with that. If they keep that so close to the vest at that point, then it's time to be a little bit more cautious with how you spend your money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what they do here. So I'm hoping it's not going to be like a 3-year wait for this game. And I hope that they don't bring back one of the things Rare was best known for was delaying everything ad nauseum.
Well, to be honest, I think you've got to expect it, because it's like 75% of all Kickstarter projects, at least in the game realm, end up being delayed at some point. So.
Well, especially with the fact that they're going to be adding a lot of Kickstarter, tiers to this. I mean, I guess they haven't announced a release date yet. But yeah, I'd be very surprised if we see this game anytime soon. So.
Yeah, it won't be for quite a while.
Alright, well, I think that wraps up for us here, so thanks guys for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain, as you can find links to in the description below, as you go away, keep up to date on everything we post. And Ted, you want to tell people where they can find you at?
Yeah, so I'm a member of Brain Scratch Comms, where we talk about video games and stuff. We do commentary over a whole different variety of video games, a lot of Nintendo, a lot of other type of stuff. It's a lot of fun. You should check it out.
I think you guys should. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.